Hey there, folks, on this lovely morning in August in the Miskatonic Valley, August 20th. And it's H.P. Lovecraft's 128th birthday, or would have been. So, yay! I'm just back from the, get myself in frame, H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, so if my mind wasn't always on all things Lovecraft, it's even more on all things Lovecraft right now, so. It being Howard's birthday, I thought I would share a story with you folks. This is the first story that I got professionally published. It started its life as a fan fiction in a comment section challenge thread thing. What are words? And I polished it up and sent it off to this little anthology, Beyond the Wall of Death, Lovecraft at 125, which was published back in 2015. Wow, how time has flown. Published by Atlantean Publishing, and without further ado, here is Curiosity Shop by R.C. Mulhare. The shop in the north corner of Benefit and Angel Street had gone without tenants for several weeks, after the stationery shop previously in operation had removed elsewhere. But that one afternoon, as young Howard walked home from school, he found a bookstore had opened in the formerly empty space. Mother expected him back home as soon as he could, and she grew anxious if he returned even a little bit late. But he threw his usual caution to the wind and let himself into the shop. A cascade of deep-tongued bells rang, the top of the door brushing against them as he entered. The warm, musty smell one usually found in older libraries and long-established bookshops hung in the air as he rounded the tables and shelves laden with books. The shop had the feel of long occupying this space, but how could it? He had never seen the like of it before, no less on this street. He walked through the shelves, scanning the titles on the spines. No newly printed titles here, and none of the yellow-backed, paper-covered novels that had started to clutter the shelves in most shops. Gilding, some worn, some faded, on untooled leather spines, warm earth tones to the leather covers. He reached over to caress them, traced over the names and titles with his fingertips. Poe, Bierce, Hawthorne, Chambers, the fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm, The 1001 Nights, Fraser's Golden Bough. So many volumes that had inspired him as he pored over them in his grandfather's library, as if someone had collected these volumes based on the titles in his memory. On one shelf, just above his head, he spotted one title that had eluded him, a complete copy of the original play, The King in Yellow, bound in yellow sheepskin. A yellow sign, the yellow sign, like a golden scorpion engraved into the cover. He reached for it as if taking up a precious relic and handled the front cover by the edge, opened it. A paper slip tucked into the front cover showed the price, more than he had in the tin savings box on his dresser back at home, in which he kept the leavings of his meager allowance. A shadow fell over him, and he looked up to spy a tall, slim man in a dark suit, his form in shadow against the light from the curtained windows at the front of the store. "May I help you, young man?" he asked in a rich, deep voice. Howard quickly closed the book, and started to shuffle it onto the shelf. "I'm fine. I was just going," he sputtered. The man, obviously the shopkeeper, held up a hand. "No need to put that volume away so quickly. I take it you're a connoisseur of the fantastical?" "Yes, since my mother read fairy tales to me in my cradle, and my grandfather told ghost stories to me when I sat at his knee." The shopkeeper chuckled in his throat. "Your cradle? You speak as if you were an elder man. You're perhaps 16? 17, Howard said. "Your eyes suggest that you have an old soul," the shopkeeper said. "Shall I wrap it up for you?" "I don't have the money for it in hand," Howard replied, trying not to sound downcast. "Keep it. You can bring the fee when you have it," the shopkeeper said, holding out one hand for it. "You have the look of an honest young man with a reverence for the printed page and the stories that they hold." Howard put the book into his hand and followed the shopkeeper to the front counter, itself piled with more volumes, where the man wrapped the volume in brown paper, sealing it with yellow sealing wax. The shopkeeper had him sign a credit slip. With that and a handshake, Howard went on his way, another book added to the small pile under his arm. Mother met him in the front room as he let himself into the house. Her eyes went immediately to the brown paper parcel amongst the books tucked under his arm. "Howard, you aren't buying books again, are you?" she said. "I told you we'd take your grandfather's books down from the attic as soon as we get some bookcases." "Mother, it's not a volume that grandfather had. It's a complete copy of The King in Yellow." She wagged her head tiredly. "Don't you already have that one?" "This is a different edition with more stories," he fibbed. If he told her what it truly was, she would not believe him. "I'm afraid I need to ask you for an advance on my allowance to pay for it." She sighed, rolling her eyes. "Howard, how many times have I told you? We're in shortened circumstances. You can't buy books like you're accustomed to." "I'll do extra chores. I'll even wash the dishes for a month." "No, not this time. You need to live within your means. You take that book to back to wherever you got it, and you explain to the clerk why you can't take it, she said, looking him in the eye. All right, then I'll work for it. I'll offer to work in the shop where I bought it, Howard argued. Mother fixed him with a look. You'll do no such thing. You're a Phillips. You won't lower yourself to that. And besides, you have your class work. I can work after class, and there's no shame in selling books. I know several people who have after-class jobs. Yes, people who don't have your breeding, people who deserve to work in shops. But wasn't Father in sales? He sold precious metals wholesale. That's not the same as mingling with the common class and taking the change from their dirty hands, Mother said, fairly spitting the words as if the taste of them sickened her. He started to object that it seemed a perfectly respectable shop, not the sort to which day laborers with grimy hands would exactly patronize, but she held up her hand, not hearing another word from him. Now, I want you to take that back tomorrow. Don't even unwrap it. She held her hand out to him. Let me have it. You can't distract yourself from your classwork. Your teacher told me that you're failing math again. Yes, Mother, Howard sighed, relinquishing the package to her before trudging up the stairs to his room. The following afternoon, Howard returned home directly after class to collect the package containing the book. Mother handed it over without a word, and he took it as if he were taking a beloved pet to be put to sleep. What a tender euphemism for something so dreadful and final. He had passed the shop twice on his way to and from school, and each time it felt as if the paradise he had enjoyed had transformed into a walled garden locked away from him. He approached, the package clasped to his chest, then lifted his eyes to the shop windows. The windows stood empty. No sign of the shelves within. The curtains that covered them were placed with brown paper sheets pasted to the several panes of glass. A "For Rent" sign hung on the door, dust and cobwebs hanging from the corners. He sighed. At least this let him off the hook. He could only hope that Mother would not throw a fit when he told her he could not exactly return the book to a shop that no longer existed. Naturally, when he returned home and related this strange sequence, she insisted that he leave it behind regardless. He calmly told her that he could not bring himself to leave the package on the doorstep, where it might get rained on or stolen. He even offered to walk her to the shop to show her that it had closed, but she relented, too tired to go to that length. He excused himself, pleading that he had assignments to complete, and slipped upstairs to his room, the package still under his arm. Straight away, once he had closed the door to his room, he broke the seals and unwrapped the package. The weight of the book felt the same, but the salamander had vanished from the leather cover. Opening it, he found the ivory-colored, vellum-like pages blank, not a word of print on any of them. He sighed. The text had vanished, like the shop from which he had acquired it, but a blank page begged to have words etched across it, and his mind teemed with tales to be told. Sitting down to his desk, he spread the book open on the desktop. Then he took up his fountain pen, opened his inkwell, and dipping his pen, set it to the page. Now that one was inspired by a book barn. It was a bookstore at a gigantic barn up in, I think it was near either Salisbury, Massachusetts or Seabrook, New Hampshire. I can't remember where exactly, but it was this wonderful place. You walked in, and it just, that old book smell just permeated the entire place, and it was so big. I mean, you could literally spend 3 days in this place, just looking through all the books. I mean, there was just everywhere. I mean, there was, they converted the box stalls into these little book nooks, full of shelves. There was just wall-to-wall shelves, and they were all crammed. And there was 3 floors of books in this barn. It was just books everywhere, books in piles, books on tables, books piled on the floor, books piled on the ends of the stairs, books everywhere. And it was just this. I'd been up there a few times. Unfortunately, I believe it's closed down because the gentleman that ran it was getting older and he was retiring and just, wasn't in the best of health and wasn't able to maintain it anymore. And apparently the entire lot of books wound up getting auctioned off to some other place, and it's been since, been dispersed through different used book places, and, sad to see it go, but I wound up getting the germ of the story for this from that place and that incident, and I just worked it into that, and, wrote this as a tribute to books, a tribute to people who appreciate books, and rather obviously a tribute to a fine old gentleman who's inspired me very often and whose stories just weirded me out in the best ways imaginable and made me think about the cosmos and our place in it and, so many awesome things. So, That was my very first story that I ever got published. I'll post a link to it in the description below, and yeah, so awkward pause. I guess that means that it's time for me to sign off. And okay, so again, happy birthday, Howard, wherever you are. You keep inspiring many people, and we appreciate what you did for us. And without further ado, I'm RC Mulhare. You folks keep it creepy and keep it eldritch.